Hello and good evening, everyone. So glad you can join us. My name is Dr. Lara Varden, and I am one of the in-house clinicians here at the DNA Company. I am a functional genomics and holistic health practitioner. And I am so glad you are joining us here this evening, and I am looking forward to answering your questions. So I do want to preface the fact that I am a doctor, actually not an MD, I'm a PhD, but I'm not your doctor. So I do want to say that the things that I offer here this evening are to be taken as educational, that they are to be ideas that you can look into and definitely speak with your practitioner, the one who is prescribing any medications, the one who's actually following you for any type of supplements or anything before you start or do anything new. Please make sure to check with your doctor. Okay, so that being said, I would like to jump right in and start answering some questions. And I do see, let's see. Okay.
It looks like we've got a couple questions in the Q&A box for you to get you started, Dr. Varden. Thank you.
And okay. So first one from Sarah Campbell. What are lifestyle things I can do to help bind testosterone? I've heard both stretching and weightlifting mentioned. Yes, absolutely. What ends up happening is that your body will give you what it asks for. If you start pushing that warrior gene, if when you are exercising and stretching, your body is going to upregulate your testosterone and that AR, the androgen receptor, more receptors will be brought to the surface of the cells in order to bind the testosterone. So things that you can do, absolutely stretching, that yoga, other types of stretching exercises, as well as resistance training is very good. Yes, weightlifting, depending on your particular exercise regimen and what it is that you are looking to get out of your workout. You don't necessarily have to go lift heavy weights. You can actually do like resistance band exercises. For example, Dr. John Jaquish's X3 bar is wonderful because it has the resistance bands, but he has it set up in such a system where you are not overstressing your joints and could cause injury. And it does maximize the amount of resistance that you can actually provide to your body and actually build that lean muscle mass. Again, binding the testosterone. So yes, absolutely. And let's see, next one. Jerry Elio. The ApoE is AG in my case. Okay. I have always had high cholesterol. Right now, it is 220. I'm worried that the inflammation will cause my brain to weaken. CYP2R1 is GG. So when I take vitamin D, it does nothing. Okay. I do want to clarify, though, just because your CYP2R1 gene is a GG doesn't mean that it's doing nothing. It just means that it is not as efficient at converting the vitamin D2 that you get from the sun in your skin to vitamin D3. You're still doing it. It's not like you're not doing it at all. You're just not doing it as efficiently. So it is doing it. And that's why it's still very, very important to get out in the sun, especially first thing in the morning. When you get up, even if it's a little cloudy, you still have those UV rays that are very important for photobiomodulation. Get out in the sun, let your face be in the sun, your skin see the sun for about 10-15 minutes. That will help to upregulate your BDNF, that brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It helps send a cascade of other neurotransmitters and hormones in the body that actually helps with the regulation of all the other systems, including cholesterol. It actually helps also if you ground yourself. So you can actually habit stack a few of these things, which I think is very important. And this will actually provide wonderful information for all of you. Is first thing in the morning, get out and get some sunlight. While you're doing that and standing there, do some deep breathing exercises. This brings more oxygen into the body. It helps to regulate your I'm sorry, hold on. Helps to regulate your blood flow, the oxygenation in the blood. It also helps with methylation. And when you oxygenate your body, that also helps to support your immune system, gut health, everything. So do some deep breathing exercises. Also, even if there's snow on the ground, but get out barefoot. You want to ground yourself. You want to get those electrons flowing. You want to have your blood get the electrons and grounded. So that way the blood cells are not sticking together. So you can habit stack and do all those things, which are wonderful for cardiovascular health, which also helps again with cholesterol. Now, I do want to preface, Jerry had said the ApoE gene. Now, I do want to say the ApoE gene is what it does is it relates to lipid metabolism and can affect the total cholesterol LDL levels. And in this, now ApoE normally is a number. So you had said that you are AG in your case. So I'm not sure exactly which one, because ApoE is generally like a 2-3, which is optimal, a 3-3, which is an average. When you start getting into 4 or 4-4, that's where you tend to have some trouble. So I'm thinking maybe you may be talking about the ApoA2 gene, which has to do with your saturated fat intake and that association of fat gain to that saturated fat intake. So, either way, if there is some suboptimal aspects to that, that's also part of lipid metabolism. So do those 3 things. That will definitely help. There's obviously a few more as far as inflammation, several different things you can do to bring your inflammation down. Look at your foods, look at your sleep. Okay, a lot of different things. So, but those are some of the highlights. All right, next, Jennifer Livick. She says, I'm interested in trying the carnivore diet short term. And I was just wondering what to look at in my DNA reports to know if there's anything I should be concerned about. With that, it would probably be more so your detoxification pathways, because for your DNA reports, we don't really have anything, or in the literature, there isn't really anything that goes to show in a functional way for protein metabolism. It's more so the way that you prepare the meats, that you do not want to increase the toxic load. For example, charring, smoking, any high heat that could create carcinogens on the meats, which of course would introduce more toxins, more inflammation, more issues. As far as in relation to the carnivore diet, this is something that actually short term is very beneficial. That actually is recommended in several instances to help lower inflammation that someone may have for sensitivities to vegetables, if they may be sensitive to nightshades, or they are trying to, lower some of those oxalates or phytates that they're being sensitive to. So actually, a short-term carnivore diet is very beneficial. And you will probably find that you feel better, you have more energy, your inflammation will go down, etc. Long-term, that's a different thing. That's something that you really should speak with your doctor about, to see if that is something that would be beneficial for you long-term. But that's another story. Again, concerns, just 2 things. Make sure your sources are clean. For beef, grass-fed and finished, not just grass-fed, because the finished makes a difference as well. Making sure heritage pork, free range, chickens, things like that. Make sure your sources are clean. And then also make sure you pay attention to the way that you cook your proteins. So outside of that, you should be good. All right, next question. I've got Joanne Lasky. Do you have any experience with mycotoxins? Actually, yes. I've been excreting ochratoxin A for 16 months and it recently dropped off the report, but 3 more surfaced: aflatoxin 1, citrinin, and gliotoxin. What do you say? What does this say to you? Okay, my doc feels I'm being re-exposed to mold somewhere. I have a slow compt. Thanks so much for sharing your time and insight. Well, you're very welcome. Okay, when it comes to mold toxins, yes, if it is coming back, or if you are seeing higher levels of some of these other toxins, you're definitely still being exposed somewhere. You really need to be creative and thinking and figuring out where the sources are. And this could be in a HVAC system. This could be in your water system, water filters. If they are not cleaned and changed out, that could be a source of mold. Looking at the place of your work, where, other places that you spend more time in. Also, mold can hide in very precarious places. If you had any type of leaking in windows, pipes behind walls in the attic, in the basement, take a look at that, because that mold could actually be where you can't see it, yet you are being exposed and having being toxified by it. So you really need to find the source and you could even get a good person to come in, do some tests or do a mold test. Actually, Kashif did a webinar, I believe, just within the last, I think it was yesterday, with Got Mold. And listen to that. They have great information about where you can look, what you can do for mold mitigation. The other thing, while you are doing this, another way that you can help clear your air is through the air reactor, getting an air reactor, and also having a really good air filtration system like Austin air filters. Now, the air reactor, what that does, this machine actually breaks down at the molecular level any mold particles that are in the air, as well as on the surface of furniture and anything that is around there. And I do want to pre-frame the fact that if you do get this, when you plug it in, yes, you can run it 24/7. That's fine. It kind of sounds like a wind tunnel. You may smell a type of burning, like a plastic burning smell. There's nothing wrong with the device. It's actually doing its job. That is the smell of those molecules, these aerosolized molecules in the air that are being broken down. So you really need to make sure that you lower your exposure, find the source, mitigate that, but then also clear the air that you are breathing, clearing the water. Make sure you are drinking nice, clean water. And if you have a reverse osmosis system, distilled water is wonderful. You can get a distiller on Amazon and different places, but have a really good water filtration and just make sure to remineralize it, because with all of that being removed, with everything being removed from it, you still need your trace minerals to help build and repair the body. So those are things that I would focus on. And this goes for everybody. Really, when it comes to toxins, this is a major, problem across the board, because we are humans and we are exposed to so many toxins in our food, in our air, in our water, on the clothes we wear, in how we wash our clothes, and the laundry detergents, the beauty products, constantly inundated. And I'll tell you, with all of the clients I have worked with here at the DNA company, not once have I ever seen anyone with a perfect, optimal detoxification system for all of their detoxification systems. It just doesn't exist, at least not that I have seen. So let's not overtax our detox pathways. Let's support our bodies by lowering our toxic load, by mitigating that exposure, and by supporting our detox pathways. Okay. So next question is anonymous. If you have been recommended a magnesium supplement, does that mean any magnesium, or are there different types for different purposes? Yes, there are different types for different purposes. Actually, it is something that I do not recommend the magnesium oxide be unless you want to have very loose stools. It doesn't absorb very well. And so anyway, there are many different forms. I love BioOptimizer because they do have 7 different forms available. And the different types, actually, I don't have them all totally memorized for what they do. So I'm going to bring it up and give you some information. So it's their magnesium breakthrough. And for this, the different ones that they have, for example, they have magnesium orotate. That's for energy, that is for heart health, it is for metabolic improvements. It's really good for athletes seeking to enhance their performance. Another one is magnesium chelate. This form is especially important for muscle building, recovery, and health. There's magnesium citrate. This supports metabolic health. In fact, they say that one study found that this form may improve blood vessel health in healthy overweight individuals. Then there's magnesium bisglycinate. This form is good for muscle and overall relaxation responses. It's also very easy on the gut. So if you have a little bit of an issue with taking supplements, maybe have some leaky gut, some issues there, magnesium bisglycinate is a good form to take. Then magnesium malate. This is believed to be the most bioavailable form of magnesium. It's naturally found in fruits. It gives it that tart taste, and it's good for brain health. A lot of studies have actually looked at magnesium malate to support brain health. Then there's magnesium sucrosomal. And this form is very well absorbed. It helps to effectively produce energy. It also supports the immune system and bone health. Then there's also magnesium taurate. This is best for your heart. Actually, one study noted that the complex magnesium taurate may thus have considerable potential as a vascular protective nutritional supplement. And like I said, there are others, but ultimately you do want to stick with forms that end in ate, ATE, like I said, orotate, malate, those types of things, bisglycinate. So I hope that that gives you plenty to work off of. Okay, next one, Tina McDonald. There are certain genes that would advise a postmenopausal woman to not use, oh, you're asking, sorry. Are there certain genes that would advise a postmenopausal woman to not use BHRT, which is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy? For example, she says she does not have a copy of the UGT2B17 gene. That's the gene that actually helps to clear estrogen metabolites, androgens, these sex hormones. That's one of the genes that helps do that, especially for the androgens. And she has an AA copy of the CYP1A1 gene. Now, the CYP1A1 gene, for everyone, this is the gene that converts estrogen into the metabolite 2-hydroxyestrone. That's 2-OHE that you will often see. And actually, the AA version of the CYP1A1 is actually optimal because you have a decreased production. Also, the CYP1B1, this produces the 4-hydroxyestrone metabolite, and the GG version is actually an increased production of that particular metabolite. Now, that particular metabolite is very inflammatory because it has high estrogenic effects. With this, that can cause inflammation in the cardiovascular system. And if it is not methylated, it can actually cause DNA damage and can lead to breast cancer and other cancers. So, backing it up, what we need to do is you need to consider the fact that your pathways make the 4-hydroxyestrone more readily. Estradiol, that form of estrogen, actually has a preferential conversion to the 4-hydroxyestrone. Because one of the things that she mentions is that she states and she knows that she is more likely to have an increased conversion of progesterone into testosterone and that she is codominant. So when we look at the whole pathway, and I would really have to take a look at the whole picture because this is really nuanced and, it's hard to just say from these few genes. There's actually several genes in the entire sex hormone pathway. But if you do make more testosterone, because that would be in the dominant, okay, and that being codominant, that means that you could lean either way. Your diet and lifestyle really will dictate which way you're going to lean. So when it comes to bioidentical hormones, I cannot say, whether you should take them, whether you should not, exactly which ones. That has to actually be done, with a doctor looking into this more readily. But genetically speaking, knowing that when you have more estrogen, especially in the form of estradiol, it will preferentially go to the 4-hydroxyestrone, which you make more of. So it's something going, okay, well, maybe estradiol would not be the best form, maybe something like estriol or some other form, or maybe a little bit of estradiol, but then more of another one. Again, this can be determined by your doctor. Another thing to consider are things where you can downregulate that particular metabolite being formed. So this is something like DIM, I3C, sulforaphane. These come from cruciferous vegetables. Also, keep in the fact, remember I told you that when your 4-hydroxyestrone, if it is not methylated, it can create more havoc. Not to mention, we need to have it cleared from the system. Methylation is one of those detox pathways that helps clear these metabolites, breaks them down, and clears them out of the system by making them more water soluble. So what you also need to do, support your methylation pathway. And you can do this by eating dark leafy greens, making sure that you get your B vitamins, check your DNA reports to see what form of folate and cobalamin, which is B9 and B12 respectively, you should be taking. So follow those through, but there's several different aspects to pay attention to besides thinking about bioidentical hormone therapy. But whomever you're going to be working with, make sure to educate yourself to know the pathways. And this is where working with one of us a little more in depth, who can actually go over your entire pathway and explain to you how all of the genes work together. So that way you can go to your prescribing doctor and have a more educated discussion with them. And I think that would be your best bet. So you can look into one of our programs if you're not already in one. Our esteemed group in the background can drop some of our links that you can speak with client care and also take a look at the different programs that we have to offer. Excuse me, just a moment. Okay, next question. Adrienne Karen. Hi there. It seems that I am estrogen toxic in my report. What can I do about that? Well, actually, we just touched on some of those things. But I do want to say that your report is not diagnostic. It does not mean you are estrogen toxic. It means that you have a risk of potential estrogen toxicity. Now, I'd have to take a look at the exact aspects of it, but generally this is in a couple of the pathways that we've already discussed with the previous question. This would be the CYP1A1 gene, which leads to the 2-hydroxyestrone, the CYP1B1 gene, which leads to the 4-hydroxyestrone, or the CYP3A4, which leads to the 16-alpha-hydroxyestrone metabolites. The latter two are more inflammatory. So if you have an increased conversion of any of those metabolites, you would have an increased risk of estrogen toxicity. So what can you do about it? Well, what you can do is take a look at your toxic load. Support your detoxification pathways. So like I had said previously, methylation is really important when it comes to conjugating the methyl group onto these metabolites to clear them out of the system, as does the glucuronidation, which attaches a glucuronic acid to these substrates for clearance, as does glutathione in the glutathione conjugation pathway. SOD2 works in there too for antioxidation and the whole bit. So, and you'll also see the COMT gene. This is the catechol O-methyltransferase gene. This is the last enzyme in the methylation pathway that actually puts the methyl group onto that substrate, onto that that sex hormone, the neurotransmitter, the toxin, whatever it is. So looking at the speed of that is very important, because if you're slow, then that means you're not putting that methyl group on very well. How can you increase COMT? Well, you can increase COMT by deep breathing, oxygen. You need oxygen to help support that methylation pathway. Like I was saying at the very top of the hour, get outside, get some sunlight in your face, deep breathing, get the oxygen going, okay? Also, dark leafy greens, again, B vitamins. You want to support that methylation pathway to do that. So those are just some of the things that you can do, but also lowering your toxic load. And I know I can sound like a broken record on this, but it's so very, very important that you don't want to overburden the body when it comes to the detoxification, because it's doing such a hard, heavy job constantly. So whatever you can do to lighten its load, the better. And I want to say that when you look at the toxic load in your body, it's like having a bucket, okay? You have a toxic bucket that holds all the toxins. Now, those toxins can be dripping in, and there's always toxins that we're exposed to, no matter what, okay? There's always some sort of toxins. And those that we create endogenously inside the body, like estrogen metabolites, okay? We're always there. So it can be dripping or it can be pouring in, depending on how much exposure you have. Well, we want to empty that bucket faster than it is filling, because if it's filling faster than you're emptying, it's going to overflow at some point. When it overflows, that's when you crash. That is when you are going to have some sort of presentation, some sort of, diagnosis, whether it be Hashimoto's, whether it be, PCOS, whether it be, any one of these things, cancer, okay? Your body is not detoxifying quickly enough. So whatever you can do to support your liver, couple things to support: castor oil packs. They are wonderful. Love your liver. It's doing an incredible job for you to help clear those toxins, okay? Drink water, hydrate yourself. Make sure you're giving your body those basic nutrients, those trace minerals that it needs to do these processes, to support the pathways, to be able to regenerate and heal. That's what needs to be done. And that goes for everyone. So I really appreciate these questions. They're fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so we have another one from Anonymous. Are there certain diets that are better than others to address things like PCOS or other hormonal dysregulations? A lot of friends recommend no dairy, no grain, high carnivore. Actually, yes, there are certain diets that do focus on some of these. Actually, for PCOS, I remember, I'm trying to remember her name. You can actually do some Googling. I forgot the woman's name. She does a beautiful job, and she specifically focuses on PCOS. But I will say there is still a standard of good health for you to have when it comes to dealing with these certain conditions. And it's something that I don't like, chasing conditions, because that's further on the branches. That's looking at the leaves and branches. And usually the problems are at the root, which I was just, talking about on my little soapbox about, good health and different things. And there's a lot of things that we can do, is really clean food, clean water, clean air, healthy foods, organic foods. Okay. Having these things, it's amazing when you get to the root cause and start living a cleaner, healthier diet. Everything downstream starts fixing itself. PCOS included. I actually was diagnosed with PCOS. Okay. I don't have that anymore because I changed my lifestyle. I changed my diet. I cleaned myself up. I did detox protocols. So I've been there. I do understand. And yes, they do have them, but first start with the low-hanging fruit. Start making these basic changes for a healthier life. And then you can start dialing in and fixing, some of these other aspects, because you got to clear the muddy waters, see what is there to focus on instead of trying to focus on everything, So, but definitely I do want to say the dairy, more so, from the general milk, because of, again, the toxins that are in it. If you can get milk from a local farmer who does not use hormones, who has healthy grass-fed cows, things like that, that would be much better if you want to use dairy. But in general, yeah, cutting out dairy, cutting out those things, allowing the system to clean out and to clear itself and to reset is generally a good thing. Okay, next question. Lorella Pritchett, my UCP1 gene is an AG suboptimal. Okay, and I do want to preface for everyone, UCP1 deals with thermoregulation. And she says, I tend to get cold easily and I have a hard time to sweat. Any recommendations to improve my thermoregulation? My body doesn't sweat easily. Is it okay to push it through sauna and hot yoga? Even in the hot heat of a sauna, it takes me several minutes to start a good sweat. Or is it a sign that my body doesn't want to release the water and it's better not to push it? Okay. How I'm going to approach this is there are different things that you want to pay attention to. Generally, when I hear that someone has a hard time sweating, first of all, I will ask, have you always been like that, even as a child? Or did you sweat when you were a kid, when you were a teenager? Because if you did sweat when you were younger or at another time in your life, I don't think it's so much your UCP1 gene and dealing with thermoregulation. I mean, that can play a small factor. That's where, it tends to show up. But generally, for people who do not sweat very easily, I look to mold toxicity, any mold exposures, because mold will do that. It will hinder your ability to sweat. A couple things that I would do is I would look to get your lymphatics flowing and draining. Clear those toxins that are underneath and within the tissues and the fascia. You've got to make sure that your body is clearing. Start from the bottom up. And this is in a general sense too for everyone. You want to make sure that you're pooping. And that's what I mean for starting from the bottom up. Yes, I'm talking about your bum. So make sure you're pooping at least 2 to 3 times a day. Then make sure that everything is flowing and draining, because you don't want any of those toxins being reabsorbed. If you are releasing any of those toxins from the tissues, from the cells, and it's stagnant and you're not pooping and getting it out, you're reabsorbing them. That's not good. So no detox, no nothing until you are pooping, okay? And there are different things that you can do for that. Support the lymphatics, dry brushing, rebounding, exercise, movement, okay? Anything like that, get that going. Support and check to see if there is mold, if you have been exposed to mold in your past. And I'm talking any time in your past. We're talking even 10 years ago. If you have not done a detox, or if you haven't done ways to mitigate and remove yourself from that exposure, you're still being affected by it. So that will affect that. When you've done that, also make sure that you're hydrating, that you have the nutrients that you need, but also you can work into upregulating your brown fat. And this works into working those thermodynamics in the body through cold exposure, doing cold plunges, a cold shower. This is fantastic for increasing the brown fat and being warmer, okay? This makes a huge difference. And there are some wonderful podcasts and information that talks about that. Actually, I had just heard one that talked about it. I'll have to see if I can get it put in the show notes, but even if you take a look, looking at cold exposure, Wim Hof method is fantastic, working in that deep breathing, getting the oxygen, increasing your immune system. Also, it helps, again, to prep the body when you are doing any kind of cold exposure, doing like heat and cold, doing a sauna and a cold exposure. And actually, the sauna helps to increase your brown fat as well. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, Jim Quick. He had interviewed this one doctor who did research on this, and they were saying that if you do a sauna like an hour a week, not all at once, you have to break it up into 2 or 3 sessions. So doing like 3 sessions of 20 minutes or 2 sessions of a half hour, that actually helps with cardiovascular health. It helps with thermal regulation. Excuse me just a moment. Sorry, my throat is dry, just a moment. So sorry. Apologies, I get talking, my throat gets dry. Anyway, so I was mentioning about the cold exposure and the sauna, but that is wonderful when it comes to stressing the body in a hormetic way. In order to increase that brown fat, you will tend to be warmer longer. And also, that will help with the sweating. Sorry. All right. Okay. Next question from Anonymous. I watched the men's health webinar with Dr. Wild and Justin Harris the other day. Loved it. They are awesome. And I will make sure that they know. What are some key daily habits I would recommend that is generally beneficial for men's health and longevity? Well, to be honest, when it comes to men's health, since you are human, there are the basics that I have already touched upon several times. Excuse me, just a moment. I need to. My apologies again. So for men's health, really the exercise, pushing the testosterone, increasing your testosterone, really important. Yes, it can decline as you get older, but this is what's important is, excuse me, getting your lean muscle mass. So doing the stretching exercises, doing weightlifting. Actually, Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield have wonderful articles on ways to increase testosterone naturally and overall good health. They also do a fantastic job on men's health, longevity. Also, and this is not just for men, but getting into bioregulatory peptides, things like epitalin, also pronounced epidolon, whichever you prefer, and BCP 157, which is body protective compound 157. These peptides have actually shown wonderful results in longevity, in healing, which are fantastic, not just for men, for women as well. So I would definitely explore a little bit further some of those articles and do some research on that. So excellent. If you could excuse me for just one moment. Just sorry, the coughing makes my nose run. Yes, my human body is does go through these different things. Okay, next question. Audrey, I have primary Raynaud's where my fingertips turn white in cold weather or during stressful situations. How can I analyze my DNA report to help understand what I can do to improve this condition? Well, again, it is not so much the condition that we look at when we are looking at your reports. What we try to focus on is how can we improve blood flow, circulation, different aspects like this, because it's also a question is, were you born with Raynaud's? If you weren't, well, then that's something that can be reversed, that you can help. So now you probably don't have, excellent blood flow, or there may be some issues through there, but that can be supported. And with similarly to what one of our previous questions was about when it came to thermoregulation. So doing exercises. By the way, I do want to mention when you are stressed, one of the things that happens when you're in a sympathetic state is that the capillaries in the peripheral capillaries in your fingers, your hands, feet, toes, they end up constricting to keep the blood to center mass, to your core, to make sure that is surviving. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why when you get stressed or, before you go up on stage and all of a sudden your heart is pounding, your eyes dilate, your palms are sweaty, your hands are cold. That's why, because that is a physiological response to being in the sympathetic state. So that's one of the reasons why your hands get cold. In your case, maybe those capillaries are even smaller, and that's why it ends up turning white, because you do not have that blood flow. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do, some deep breathing exercises. Try to keep yourself in that parasympathetic state. Or if you find yourself moving into it, it's not like you can never keep yourself out of a sympathetic state. It's just you don't want to stay there. This is where using techniques, deep breathing exercises, mind relaxation, using things like the brain tap device to help calm yourself, to help re-regulate your brain waves, doing the heart math, clipping on your ear to be able to have that heart coherence to keep yourself and relax yourself, having this biofeedback. When you do that, you have better blood flow. That way it'll keep your extremities warmer. In cold weather, again, the capillaries constrict because it wants to keep you alive by keeping your vital organs alive. It's the same type of thing. So in colder weather, it could be something, make sure that you are wearing something on your hands to keep your hands warm. Also practicing some of the things to to do hormetic stresses, like I was saying, doing some cold therapy, deep breathing, but easy. Don't go full in, doing a cold plunge, for 2 minutes right away. Obviously not. Take it low and slow, build up the brown fat in your system, and kind of retrain your heart and your cardiovascular to be able to handle that for better blood flow. And also, it's taking a look at your food, taking a look at your nutrients to make sure your body has what it needs to repair and to provide the basic building blocks to have the repair necessary. Okay, so next question, which supplements are good for vegans? Well, there could be a lot of different things. When it comes to veganism, I actually was vegan for a little while. I found that physically, emotionally, mentally, everything, it didn't work so well for me. My fingernails became very brittle. My teeth started to ache there because what was happening is I was not getting all the nutrients necessary for my body that my body needed. So when you're talking about supplements, this really depends on where are you deficient. Oftentimes, vegetarians and vegans are deficient in B12, iron, copper, the things that you would normally find in animal proteins. It's also something I would check your vitamin D levels, because a lot of times you don't get that type of vitamin D, D3 from, other sources. It can be already converted in animals. Also your excuse me, also your vitamin A. Vitamin A, that conversion is in actually technically the BCMO1 gene, beta carotene monooxygenase, that converts beta carotene that you find in vegetables into retinol, the actual usable form that we need. Well, if you don't do that so well, you're not going to be getting the retinol, that vitamin A that you need, because animals convert it for us. So it's already in that form. Cod liver oil is a fantastic source of vitamin A. But as a vegan, do you eat fish? If not, then that's something that you have to consider doing a supplement for that. But your best bet is to do like a micronutrient test, find out where you can be deficient. Excuse me. Also, speaking with one of our clinicians, or even your doctor, and also look at the symptoms that you may be having, because that can be indicative to where certain nutrient deficiencies may lie and what supplements you could need. All right, next question. Okay, this is from Anonymous. Do you test for BRCA? Actually, not in our DNA 360 reports, but we do now have a liquid biopsy test that looks at cancer markers and other things. I haven't actually seen the full reports and for the liquid biopsy yet, so I can't tell you exactly which things are being looked at. But as far as our DNA 360 reports, no, we do not test specifically for the BRCA gene. But I want to say this is really important, because the BRCA gene is actually an oncogene, meaning that when it is working well, it actually inhibits and stops cell proliferation. What cancer is, it's proliferation means the splitting of the cells. It means that they're growing and growing and growing. Okay, so it's not being stopped, not being checked because of the DNA damage. All right, so it keeps making more cells with DNA damage. Well, the BRCA gene, when it's working, it actually helps to fix the DNA damage and continue on. So, but generally, again, that's looking at the branches. We want to look at the roots. When there's a problem with that, it generally has to deal with a problem in detoxification, a problem with your lack of ability to convert or absorb certain nutrients that you need as cofactors for healthy processing in systems, or your mitochondria is not functioning as well. All of these different things. So again, when we're talking about functional genomics, it really is looking at the root causes, looking at the underlying terrain, not the branches so much. We can find out by looking at your overall DNA reports, seeing where things are. Like you're walking down and you've got two different roads that you can actually look further down the road and you can say, oh, there's a tree blocking that path. So knowing that, I'll know not to go down there. We can go down a better path. So that's what your DNA helps you to have. It's not you going down that path and stumbling over the tree that's fallen. Okay. So that's where the Brock is. Back here, giving us insight. That's telling us, okay, here is the path. Here's the roadmap telling us, okay, this is the way what we're going to go. This is what is further down the road. So we know where we can navigate and shift as necessary and make the changes to not have those problems. All right, next, Gail. Okay, so 6 months ago, testing revealed gluten and wheat reaction. After moving both from diet, new testing showed gluten is normal range, but wheat reactivity is still high. Wondering what I could be missing that is keeping wheat levels high. Any thoughts? Okay, so this is where you really have to get curious in your exposures. Wheat can be very sneaky in a lot of different products. I would encourage you to have a food journal. Write down everything you're eating. Actually, one thing that I do with my clients, more so my personal clients, is I have them do a food mood poop journal. So they write down everything they eat. You don't have to write down how much, just what times, and what you're eating, then the mood that you are in. And it's not just, oh, I feel groggy or I feel bloated or I feel, angry. It's also, oh, I have stomach pain. I have gas. I have, so it's the physiological feelings and the emotional feelings. And I'm talking also not just the bad stuff. Oh, I feel energetic. I feel elated. I feel happy. That comes from your food. So you really want to relate, what is it that I'm eating? How is it affecting my body? And making sure that you're eliminating. Okay. Remember I said 2 to 3 times a day. That is normal. That's what you want to be doing. So keeping track of that and using the Bristol stool chart to see, okay, am I, a 4 or a 5, or am I, and that's more of a normal stool, more like a soft ice cream. And I don't mean to get gross in this, but we need to learn how to talk about poop in a conversation when it comes to health, because it is really important that you are eliminating for good health. And I'm sure everybody at one point has been constipated and has not been the happiest person. And they felt like crap, pun intended. So this is something that, when you defecate and you feel so much better. Yeah, because it does affect your mood. And it can also affect your pain levels. If you're constipated, if you have low back pain, think about the last time you went poop. If you haven't gone in a couple of days, that's probably one of the culprits. I've had it myself. So this is something that's really important and, that works through. So getting back to the food mood poop journal, you really need to start getting curious. You really need to start paying attention to what you are exposing yourself to. And you will be amazed when you start writing it down, what you realize. Great questions, guys. All right. Next one, anonymous. What does the test say about osteoporosis? Our test does not say anything specifically about osteoporosis. What it does is it gives us a general overlook of your genes to say, okay, here are some green flags, here are some red flags, where you're strong, where you're not so strong, where you need support. Remember, DNA testing is a one and done. It doesn't change. Your DNA is what you are born with, what you will die with. These are the cards, the hand you have been played for the game of life. Some people don't have the best cards, but I'll tell you, if they know how to play the game, they can win. Just, look at those players in the poker, these major poker circuits. Okay. They know how to play the game, no matter what cards they're dealt. So this is what we are trying to teach you. You are getting to peer into the cards you are dealt, and we are helping you learn the game of life so that way you can play it the best way possible. We are empowering you with that knowledge for you to make the best decisions, to make sure that you travel down a road of health, not a road of disease and struggle. So when it comes to osteoporosis, this works in several different things. It works into your hormones. We've got your hormone and fitness systems that we look at. This works into toxifications, your detox pathways, cardiovascular system, your vitamin D, because vitamin D and calcium, very, very important. Okay, how well are you processing, absorbing, transporting, your vitamin D? Looking at your nutrients. Nutrients are super important when it comes to your bone health. So there's so many different things, so many aspects that reflect and work on the health of your bones and whether or not you are going to go down a path of osteopenia and then osteoporosis, because you don't have to, and it can be reversed. Yes, I said it. Osteoporosis can be reversed. And actually, I'll go back to Dr. John Jaquish. He actually did his PhD in this, biomedical and biomechanical engineer. His mother had osteoporosis. He reversed that. He created the machine that helped heal her. He actually created the OsteoStrong, and he does the X3 bar. And I'll tell you, just brilliant. There's videos out there of his interview with his mom talking about what he did for his research and how he helped her. Okay, we've got a few more to do. Let's see. Emily Carpenter. She said, I have a mutation to the PALB2 gene, partner and localizer of the BRCA2, which increases my risk of breast, ovarian, and pancreatic cancer. My mom had breast cancer at ages 46 and 53. She died of ovarian cancer at age 60. Her mom had breast cancer twice as well. I'm very sorry to hear that. You have my sympathies. She says, I'm 46. What are some nutrition, exercise, lifestyle recommendations you may have to help me avoid the same fate? For example, certain foods to avoid, add, types of exercise that may be better than others. Okay, I can say some general things, really diving into a more personalized aspect of diet, nutrition, lifestyle, all of these different things. This is where our programs come in. Really what I can mention and what I've said is actually a lot of things that I have already said in a general sense, doing that low-hanging fruit. You want to avoid the toxins. Part of this that I'm sure it's not just the BRCA gene. Remember, I said that is on the branches. That comes about, that ends up getting triggered because of the toxic load, because you are not clearing those metabolites well. And when we hit menopause, we are not bleeding out or releasing through breast milk or anything else, those extra hormones and metabolites. These are sex steroids. These are fat soluble. So if they are not being excreted, where do they go? they get sequestered in fat tissue. Where do we have the most fat tissue? Breasts. So that's where it goes. And then again, if it's not being cleared, it ends up going there, more toxins, DNA damage, proliferation, overproliferation of these cells. We now have cancer. So back it up, look at the root cause, support your detox pathways, lower your exposures, make sure that you are eating organic. I am going to say this because it is really, really important that you guys eat as healthy as possible. And it was very interesting because I recently watched a video. It was an interview from the High Wire. And actually, I'm going to put the link in the chat myself because I have it ready. And what happened is that Del Bigtree interviewed Zen Honeycutt, who is the leader for Moms for America. And she actually talked about deadly toxins found in fast foods. Now, you can say, well, I don't eat fast foods. Well, okay, I understand. But these foods, these toxins found in the foods are in the school systems, in our children's food that they get at schools. These have very, very low nutritional value. And with a lot of these restaurants, they third party independently tested them they found high heavy metals, they found glyphosate, like you wouldn't believe, atrazine, paraquat, a lot of different pesticides and these other things. These toxins chelate nutrients in our body, don't let us get that to be absorbed. Not to mention they're toxins and they're overloading our liver, overloading our system. In order for us to not have these things, you really have to eat organic. I know it can be more expensive, but it's like, okay, am I going to spend a little bit more on the foods that I'm eating now? Grow your own food, have a garden. This is something that, do you want that, or do you want to have the disease and end up paying a lot of money going to the doctors and having surgeries and not living that healthful life? I do encourage you to watch that interview. It will really enlighten you on what's going on and the work that they have done. So I do want to touch on a few more of these very quickly. Let's see, we're getting close to the end of this session. Beth, can you just please pop in the time that we need to be going so that way I can quickly time myself and I can.
Yeah, I mean, ideally around, I believe it's 7:30 Eastern is kind of the time we've set for it. However, I know we've closed the Q&A to allow you to kind of get a handle on who's left. So as close to that as possible, that's perfect.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay. Another question by Anonymous with regard to persistent mold. If breast or other implants, the biofilm around it will hold the mold until explanted. You cannot get rid of it. I am not familiar with the intricacies of how that works, but I will say that I have worked with several clients who have had breast implants and that have either just had them recently removed or are getting them removed. The leakage of them creates a lot of burden on the body. Yeah, I mean, whenever you have mold in the body, you are fighting an uphill battle. So this is something that you need to have tested, taken a look at, see what you can do to help detoxify the body and get those removed if that, is best for you. Okay, Mark, let's see. He's got Mary Hennick. She's got 2 questions. This may not fit in, but it has to do with DNA changing. I rarely use a microwave, but sometimes it's the only choice. I often just eat things at room temperature, but does using it really hurt the food and then me? And then she also asks what type of sauna, steam, I'm assuming not red light. Okay, first let me say for sauna, yes, steam, yes, red light, anything, the steam actually helps with the heat, upregulation of the heat shock proteins that work into that. So yes, but also red light. Red light is excellent for mitochondrial health and support and healing. So yes, both are excellent. Getting back to the DNA microwaves. Yeah, I mean, kind of like pick your battles. You also have to live in this world and do the kind of things. It's good that you don't use it very often. Yes, it can break down and cause some issues with the food that can then affect you. As long as you don't use it all the time. I mean, I still use the microwave periodically. If you work on the other things, then yeah, just do the best you can. But yeah, it is going to be hurtful in some fashion. Pick your battles. All right. And let's see. Joanne, is hyperbaric treatment okay during mold detox and as a breast cancer survivor? Thank you. I'm doing sauna, baths, and castor oil too. Beautiful. Okay. Actually, hyperbaric oxygen is very good for recovery, for health. That also is something that you can actually call and speak with someone at or who runs a hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy. They would be much better to give you more precise treatment options and the best way to work that. But I know hyperbaric oxygen is wonderful for healing capacity and speed. Okay, from Anonymous. My 16-year-old, it just jumped. Hold on. My 16-year-old daughter gets migraines just before her cycle starts, and these migraines started just a few months ago. Is this hormone related, or could this be related to something else? Do you have any suggestions on how we can support her during these times and hopefully prevent future migraines or at least minimize them? We have a fairly clean diet and have limited toxin within our household beauty products. Would appreciate any advice you would provide, and thank you in advance. Well, you're very welcome. Okay. Yes, I would bet that they are hormone related. When it comes to just before her cycle, this is when progesterone spikes, estrogen goes down. Estrogen helps us to deal with stuff. As far as exactly what to do, it is something I mean, we think that our detox or our toxic load and area is all great, but there's always something more that we can do. So please take a look, see if there's anything else that she could be exposed to. Laundry detergents. Go to EWG Environmental Working Group.org. Wonderful resource. Also, there's I was just made aware of an app, Yucca, YUKA app, which is similar to the EWD.org website, which you can actually scan and look at the toxins that are in products that you have. It is something that I would also recommend you to take a look at Dr. Mindy Peltz's site, Fast Like a Girl. There was an interview she did with Kashif oh gosh, what was it? At the beginning of the year. Beautiful. And they actually talked about teenage girls and, working through their cycle and how their levels are changing and how that can affect. But I would definitely take a look at her site as well as her book, Fast Like a Girl, because that is something that would give you great insight on hormone regulation that could definitely help. Okay, a couple more here. Let's see. Anonymous, do you have any thoughts on C60 use and if it helps with inflammation? Oh, yes, I love C60. I use it myself. It is a fabulous antioxidant. It's called Buckmeister. The whole thing is because there are 60 carbons. That's what C stands for, is C, and 60 of them. And in the shape, it looks like one of those buckyballs. So in any case, what it does is it actually gets into the cell, into the mitochondria, and it will absorb all of these oxidants and mutate them, transmute them where they're not harmful anymore. And what's so lovely about it is it will do that, then it will go back and it can go back and forth and and help with this antioxidation. Fabulous antioxidant. There was a wonderful episode that Kashif did with the founder of C60, where he actually talks about the benefits, how he came up with its usage. I mean, C60 had already been around, but it was used as a anti-radiation. And he kind of went from there and made it into a supplement. But he found, even though, FDA rules, he couldn't post it, but he actually took it because he had macular degeneration. And a doctor friend of his had macular degeneration as well. I don't remember which one had wet and which one had dry, but they each were taking that. And within a year, it reversed it. Of course, they can't really say that. But they do have the measured data to show the healing process that it does. And because it works in the mitochondria, it is fantastic. So yes, I definitely recommend that. Okay, so let's see what else. Joanne, I'm probably going to have a tooth extracted. It's likely one that had a root canal. I know that it's not ideal. It was done 40 years ago. I got a major zap through it last week and have not been able to chew on it. Is there anything I need to consider or do to prep or heal afterward? I'm looking for a biological dentist. Fantastic. Prep, heal, doing a lot of the things we've already been talking about. Red light therapy. You can also look into methylene blue that actually helps to upregulate oxygen saturation for the red blood cells. It helps to give more energy to the mitochondria for better healing. The two together magnify the results. Doing things, there's a lot of different things that you could do to help prepare for surgery and afterward. Getting good sleep, making sure you stay in a parasympathetic state, deep breathing, a lot of different things. I mean, there are even more. And actually a great video documentary, healwithdave.com. Dave Asprey actually walked through his prep before and after he had foot surgery. Great information. You don't have to do all of it, but there are certainly some things that can help when it comes to preparing and healing from surgery. Okay, couple more here. Let's see. Anonymous, what's the difference between the new PG test and the DNA 360? Okay, so you must be thinking the PGX test. Now, the PGX testing, first of all, DNA 360 testing is your general genomics, looking at your genes through a functional lens. The PGX testing actually looks at your genes interpreted in how you react with certain medications, how those medications, like which classes you would be better to use, which ones you should stay away from based on your genes. So it's more so the algorithm and the focus, because again, your genes are your genes. DNA 360 looks at the overall aspect of general health, wellness, and functional genomics, where PGX uses your genes to look at how that is synthesized into how you would work with certain medications and medication classes. All right. And let's see. Last one, anonymous. I'm experiencing alopecia for the past few years. Okay, by the way, alopecia is the loss of hair thinning. I am postmenopausal, had amenorrhea. Amenorrhea means the cessation or stopping of the period in late 20s. No other autoimmune problems to my knowledge. What are gene indications? Okay, well, again, really hard to say specifically without actually looking at your reports. I have to lean in on reiterating what I have said throughout this, and that really comes down to the toxification, your detox pathways. Because when it comes to, the hair follicles, oxygenation, the way your body uses minerals, all of these things we're hitting on a lot of different areas, not just your detox pathways, but how is your cardiovascular profile? How is your food, your diet, nutrition? How are you able to break down and utilize the nutrients that you're taking in? Are you taking in those nutrients? This starts working into the epigenetics. So again, there are things that can be done, not to mention hormones. Okay. So it's really looking at all these different aspects and piecing it together to say, okay, so this is why you are, having these particular presentations, but it's not just looking at the genes, because you were born, well, you may not have been born with hair, but as you were growing, you grew hair. Okay. This happened, like you said, more so in the 20s. This is where epigenetics and doing a good background questionnaire and having, one of us ask those questions. And what happened in your life? What was going on? What kind of traumas, physical, mental, emotional, chemical, all of these different things were you exposed to that would have triggered the cascade for you to have these issues like alopecia, etc.? Okay, that's when we can start doing some reversing and saying, okay, now, based on this history, based on your DNA, this is what we can do to start focusing the efforts. And that is what we do in our programs. This is what we offer you. Because yeah, you guys can have your DNA reports, but you really have to know how to navigate it, how to translate that into real workable action items. Not just that, but really start diving in and saying, how are all of the experiences in my life, my allostatic load, which is all of the stresses that have built up over your lifetime? And again, I'm not just talking the physical stresses. I'm also talking about mental, emotional, chemical, all of these stresses, everything that comes together. That is your allostatic load. Where is that going? And how can we start teasing it apart to be able to allow your body to heal? Your body is naturally in a healing state. We just need to get out of its way. I don't know everything, but your body does. You also need to give it the tools that it needs to heal. These are your essential nutrients, essential amino acids. What that means, essential, it means you have to get it from outside of yourself, in your food, in your drink, breathing the air, okay? All of these different things are very, very important. So we need to help support this body. It's taking care of us. We need to take care of it. And with that, I would like to thank you all so much for joining me tonight, for joining my fabulous team. I want to give a great shout out to all of them who make everything run in the background, who make me look and sound great. I really, really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening tonight to share this with me, asking these questions, putting time and energy into your health, into finding out and educating yourself to empower yourself to become the best version of you possible. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you everyone for participating this evening. As typical with our Q&As, we'll be sending out a replay once we get the recording online. And like Dr. Varden said, have a great evening.